Recording started. Okay, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. This is the Boulder County Mobility and Access Coalition meeting. This is our September meeting and we have a really full agenda today. So looking forward to learning a bunch of great things. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we really get started. We do have a couple different ways to join us. If you do lose connection during the meeting, that invite that you got should have a one-tap phone call-in. So if you're having internet issues, sometimes that's a good workaround. You won't be able to see the PowerPoint presentations that we have, but you'll be able to listen into the conversation and then also contribute by unmuting yourself through the phone. So the video does help with communication. So if you're asking a question, we ask that you unmute yourself and also turn on your camera if you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, we fully understand. There are the chat functions here in the bottom, and you can click on that and then type your questions, comments in the chat function and also read everybody else's comments and questions. You can also click on participants and see what other participants we have on the call. And again, this is being recorded so that we can share the recording with people who are unable to attend afterwards. We do meet every month, the second Monday of the month, from 2 to 3:50. And we did switch to virtual meetings due to COVID, but we'll likely stick around virtually just because it allows more people to participate, more of our stakeholders. Also, we have some working group meetings that will launch in 2022, and we started doing some brainstorming around funding coordination, provider and program data, and outreach and education for those buckets. But we used to alternate between Longmont and Boulder, but really our focus is for Boulder County and in and around Boulder County and even beyond the borders of Boulder County. So what is the Mobility and Access Coalition? We really focus on transportation access for older adults, people with disabilities, low-income households, BIPOC residents, Spanish-speaking residents, youth, and we really do believe that transportation access is access to opportunity, it impacts people's quality of life, and it's a basic need. So here you'll see the social determinants of health with equity in the core. And transportation is one of those linchpin services that allows people to access all other aspects of their life, like housing, school, health, well-being, food, nutrition, employment. And we really want to make sure that people have access to multimodal transportation options to achieve stable and safe and thriving conditions. So we don't believe in one choice for everybody. We want to make sure that everybody has options and is more resilient in that manner. Here's our agenda today. And again, I did tell the people who were here earlier that Aiden is back in school. So it's just me manning the weight room. So I apologize if you had to wait too much. We have a pretty full agenda today. We have updates from Commissioner Loachman and the ARPA engagement team. We have a back to school update with our youth transportation program. RTD has some information on their language access survey and service changes. VIA has an update on an upcoming event. And then we have 3 presentations. One is the 119 Bikeway design project, and the other is the ADA transition plan. And then we have RTD's reimagine process. So we'll try to stay on schedule here with this pretty full agenda today. So we are going to do icebreakers just because it does help people kind of break out of their shell and get to know each other a little bit better. So when you go into the breakout rooms, basically introduce yourself, your name, your organization. And then the question to think of today is, what innovations has your organization adopted in response to the pandemic? So it could be anything from virtual engagement, whatever your ideas are. So it's just an opportunity to get you talking to your the fellow people on this call. So I'll go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. And you should be automatically assigned to the breakout rooms. There should be about 3 people in each of the groups. Hi, Sandy. Did you not get assigned?
Angel, I'm just joining late, so I didn't get assigned. And I don't know what we're doing. Sorry, I'm late.
It's all right. Let me see where to put you. Let me see which one has the fewest people.
Okey-dokes.
There you go.
Number 9, here I go.
Hi, welcome back.
Welcome back. Did you want to give the update, or did you, I don't know if I'm the only one here, Angel. Do you want me to give that update?
If you want, because I don't have the link on hand, if you have the link for registration for the,
Okay.
that would be good.
I just came back, and I'll look quick if you don't know. I was in meetings all afternoon. Did we pick a date between one of those two dates?
I thought it was the 4th of October. So.
Okay.
Oh, there's Zoe. I see Zoe smiling. Yeah.
I'll let Zoe do it then.
Sounds good. Well, welcome back. Thank you all. And I want to ask that you put your name and your organization in the overall chat. That way we can keep record of who attended. So it helps us with the meeting minutes. That'd be great. And I don't know if anybody has 1 or 2 things that they heard, some of the creative stuff that people are doing since the pandemic.
I guess I can go. 2 of us in our breakout room had talked about how we're able to do more Spanish engagement online with the Zoom platform and having English and Spanish, and then also a different bridge opportunity, so better Spanish engagement.
Yeah, great, thanks. Anybody else want to share one more innovation that we've had in our communities?
One of the really clever means of getting together, Carla shared with us that periodically her and her staff would meet on top of a garage roof to kind of get together. I would do something like that, but knowing my staff, they'd probably throw me off the roof. So whatever I do needs to be on the bottom level or main level. But I thought that was pretty cute doing that.
Yeah, it's great. If you have more ideas, you can put them in the chat also. I don't want to stifle the conversation, but we do have a pretty busy agenda to get on to. So I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen again, just for a moment, because I believe that our update has their own slide. Today, Commissioner Loachman wanted to talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan Act and some of the Boulder County engagement efforts that we are implementing. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Commissioner Loachman.
Thank you. And I believe we may have emailed you just late to this meeting, if you don't mind, Angel, and I'll start talking if you don't mind grabbing that email. There's just a few slides there. So thanks, everybody. My name is Martha Loachman, Boulder County Commissioner, and we just wanted to come in and be as brief as we could, but we are going to do an actual active, interactive process here today in our few minutes. So the American Rescue Plan Act money, as a lot of you know, has different buckets of funding that are being allocated to from the state, from the federal level, et cetera. Boulder County is an organization. So outside of local municipalities, cities, et cetera, Boulder County is receiving $63.3 million. The Boulder County Commissioners already made a decision to fund $5 million of immediate needs that were programs connected to folks. Thank you so much, Angel, that have already been allocated. Some of it was CARES Act funded projects just to keep them going, i.e. the vaccine process, the vaccine equity clinics, our community ambassadors was funding that was paid or is being paid through that. So that, to give you that information, and then we set aside 10% of that large amount for administrative costs that is going to include translation services, some of the actual folks that are going to be on the ground doing everything from actual distribution of the monies, et cetera. And what I asked for our leadership team was to really step back, because as some of you know, my background is in public engagement, community outreach, family engagement. Let's step back and let's ask community members what they really want, need, and where we might miss otherwise opportunities to do long-term transformative changes. So we are, with the help of Community Foundation Boulder County, and you can go to the next slide, have brought on with Rebuild by Design a community engagement group. And so these are the 5 partner agencies that are helping us, that is coming together as a community steering committee. And they are on the ground now about a week into the process of getting community engagement, with the goal of going out to community and coming back in to give to the full board of county commissioners the recommendations of where the money should be spent. And that's phase 1. And then we'll go into phase 2, that is really going to be, how do we spend that? So I'm going to turn this over to Aisa Garita, who's one of our community engagement folks, and she's going to talk to you about the actual community engagement process and give us an interactive process here that you'll need your digital devices to participate in.
So hi, everybody. My name is Aisa. I'm with the Community Engagement Group. Here we have about the goals that we created for the American Rescue Plan for the whole engagement we will be doing for this month until September 30th. It ensures all the communities, Bill is trained, bringing all of them, and the whole process is just bringing opportunities for everybody to give an input. We understand that this is, everybody has been experiencing a lot in this pandemic. So we just want to create a transparent, equitable, and inclusivity process. We can go to the next slide. So here for the community engagement goals, on the left side, we have until now 350 surveys collected until today. We started this process the last week, just putting the survey out. In the first week, we have 200 surveys filled out in the first week. Until now, we have 14 events confirmed and counting until September 30th. Our goal for the to September 30th is to have 1,500 surveys done, and at least having 30 events done by September 30th. Some of the themes that we have looking at the survey responses are affordable housing, childcare, food insecurity, and a struggle to operate small businesses. And with this whole process, we just want to make sure that we are engaging all the communities around the county. We can go to the next slide. And this is the part where we want to get you involved, and everyone that you know involved. And is a way to do it is to go to bouldercountysurvey.com, and I will be sharing the links in the chat. So we are gonna have 5 minutes to do it right now. And after that, I can just give you all the information and the email where you can share all this information with family, friends, everyone you know, and your organizations as well. So let me just share the link.
And I put the website to the Boulder County ARPA website page. If folks already hit that link, the survey is down at the bottom of that, or you can go to the bouldercountysurvey.com as well.
So I just, this was the link that Commissioner Lichman had put in the, so right down here at the bottom right-hand side, there's the Boulder County survey. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you.
And I already share the
great.
Survey. And we have at the top, you're gonna see we have the option for Spanish and for Nepalese too, for all the communities that don't want to do it in English. And so we're gonna take, if it is okay with you, Angel, to do it for 5 minutes to give everybody the time to just fill it out. Just to know, we can discuss it afterwards for a few minutes. So
that sounds great. And then I will also send this link out after the fact that you can share with your clients as well. So we'll take about 5 minutes to just take this survey right now. Thank you, Aisa.
Thank you.
And if folks have user questions on the survey, go ahead and put them in the chat and Aisa can respond. If we're all in person, like old paper survey format, you could put your pencil down when you were done and we'd know.
Yeah. It's a pretty short survey. It's just 5 questions. So why don't we give thumbs up if you've, or you can do virtual thumbs up or actual thumbs up if you're done. I also see that Marta put in the chat the ARPA input email address where people can request flyers or to post or materials to share. So I'll include that in our follow-up email so that you all can share it with your clients. And then Aisa put her email address in the chat as well. So if you don't you can click on those like 3 dots that are above the chat and you can just download the chat. That way you don't have to copy and paste. But I'd recommend maybe doing that towards the end of the meeting. Aisa, do you want to wrap us up or do you want to wait a little bit longer?
We can't hear you.
Sorry, thank you. I was saying that I think everybody's done. And if not, of course, take your time. We really are trying to get all the good information, what you have to say. All of this will be, we're gonna grab all of the surveys, create a proposal for the commissioners. So we really wanna hear from you. And I did have a slide about saying thank you in the presentation, but it's okay if you don't put it.
There we go. Thank you for helping us.
And you can go to bouldercountysurvey.com or the email that Marta put in the chat, arpainput@bouldercounty.org, If you want to host an event, you can email us that way. We can provide a toolkit. We can come to your meeting and help you to get the word out. Just to give a timeline, we have until September 30th to go to an event. Me and Ignacio, that is my other partner in the community engagement team. So if you have any questions, please email us. We are here to help you, and we really are happy that all of you take the survey and are here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do have one question about when the survey closes. Is that also September 30th?
No, we'll be receiving information still till beginning of October, probably like the 10th or so. But the in-person events we'll still be using the survey. It's a great question. Thanks, Angel.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Asa or Marta? I don't see any in the chat right now, but thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to express transportation gaps or the needs of the clients that we serve. I really appreciate the robust public engagement effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next I'm going to be turning it over to Cami and the back to school discussion. So Cami, do you want to go ahead and, I'm not sure who from Bvsd and St. Brian you're having.
Oh, I also said, just like Commissioner Loach, I sent you, I think, our slide deck right when you probably were starting the meeting. But I can also share my screen if that's easier. But as you all can expect, it's kind of at the end of the school day. Both school districts representatives who are going to co-present with me today are now unable to make it as they have been pulled into other duties as assigned. Right now, a lot of them are actually doing crossing guard duty or driving school buses to help kind of fill in the gaps. So I'm going to do my best to pass on their updates today. You can just start on slide 2, Angel, there. So I'll start with St. Brian Valley School District, then I'll move to Bvsd, and then I'll do some county updates. So from St. Brian Valley School District side, they would like me to pass along that every school has a school wellness team. And so if you are attached to one of the local schools in that capacity or know who might be, she has, through Teresa Spires, who's a wellness coordinator for St. Brian Valley School District, she has opportunities and funds through their coordinated health services to support activities around active transportation or physical activities. So she just wanted me to share, reach out to her if that sounds of interest to any of you. St. Brian has also developed a brand new website, which is that second link, and we can share the slideshow afterwards so everyone has access to the links. But they've created a website just dedicated to their essential positions that they have available. And within their transportation has their open availability jobs, which are bus drivers as well as bus driving aides on available through the school district. They also have a nice video if you're interested in watching about who makes up the St. Brian transportation team. It's about 5 minutes. We won't show it today. But if you had any specific questions for St. Brian Valley School District around schools related transportation or youth transportation supports, please put your questions in the chat and we will pass it on to them and we'll have them answer directly as best that they can. So, if you want to go to Bvsd's updates, that's the next slide. I'm sorry, the formatting on this slide got a little weird, so it somehow shrunk on me. But as we've talked about, and as most of you are aware, that there's obviously bus driver shortages going on, as there's driver shortages for all transportation services right now. But Bvsd is having a job fair coming up on the 22nd from 4 to 6 p.m. at their district-wide education center. And transportation specifically will be hiring for bus drivers and crossing guards. They have launched a new crossing guard program specifically to help service the schools that have recently lost bus service because they've had improved infrastructure project in the area that no longer warrants a bus service. So not necessarily directly related to the bus driver shortage, those are at other schools, but these schools have had improved infrastructure, so the bus service went away. but they're looking for crossing guards at these 5 specific areas: Heatherwood Elementary School, Superior Elementary School, Meadowlark Pre-K through 8, Louisville Middle School, and then the multiple schools that are on the Monarch campus. So if you're interested, please reach out to them. Their trip tracker program in Bvsd is live and up and running again. They have a number of new schools. So these schools listed here, there are 4 new ones: Crestview Elementary School, Centennial Middle School, and those on the Monarch campus. I think most people are familiar with Trip Tracker, but just in case you're not, it's a program that encourages all forms of school transportation, other than driving sort of in your own single family vehicle all the way with your own family, all the way up to school, the school property line. And so teachers and students and staff get rewarded with tracker bucks or tracker dollars, which can be spent like real money at locally owned businesses. So it's a great program that's been around for about 10 years, I think, in the area now. They also wanted to remind you that all schools in Bvsd have been connected to Dr. Cog's school pool network. It's where families can sign up and choose to share as much or as little information they want, but to find those in their neighborhoods who might be interested in carpooling. And they also want to encourage you to use it to find walking and biking groups. So the adults can maybe partner up with other adults to make sure that there's at least an adult walking with your kids to and from school, or biking or driving, but you might not necessarily have to do it yourself every single day if you kind of find either a walking pool or a car pool or a bike pool to join up with. So please take advantage of the school pool network if you happen to be a family in Bvsd, or pass that on to your families who you might work with. And the last update from Bvsd is that Walk to School Day is always celebrated in October, the first Wednesday in October, internationally actually. So this year it'll be October 6th. And they have available stickers and banners to give out. So please reach out to, as you can see over in the bottom left-hand corner, Amy Thompson and Landon Hilliard are your Safe Routes to School coordinators for the school district. They can help get you access to these materials if you're interested in them. There's also going to be a used shoe collection drive attached to Walk to School Day, which is a great idea. And also know that any school can request to be a part of a program called Ride and Stride, which is where the bus will drop off kids a few blocks away on Walk to School Day, and then they can walk in together the rest of the way. So it's a nice way to sort of incorporate 2 modes in one. So there are Boulder Valley School District's updates. And again, if you have any specific questions for them, we can definitely pass it along for them to answer afterwards. And then lastly, I know I'm cruising through these real fast, but I know your agenda's full. Here's some updates from myself and internally here at Boulder County, is that we have the Youth Transportation Option Guide to give you. We have what we think is the final English version. We just wanted to show it to you all one more time to see if there's any mistakes that need to be changed. And if we kind of get this group and ourselves to sign off on it, we'll go ahead and get it translated also into Spanish. So it basically operates and asks someone to check off the options that would work for them. It sort of looks like a handwritten note page with our contact information up top, and then there's space at the bottom for you, if you as an agency want to hand this out to your clients or families, for you to put any other follow-up information as well. So we try to be as exhaustive on this list as possible for options that might work for local youth and families. So let me know, we'll send this around, and if you notice any mistakes, let me know and we'll get those changed as quickly as possible so we can get out the bilingual version here in the next week or 2. That's the goal. There is going to be a bike rodeo in Longmont connected to the Lightshine Radler ride, which is on Saturday from 2 o'clock until 10 o'clock. It's going to be at Wibby Brewery. And so if getting some bike education and safety materials is something you're interested in and you're going to be in the Longmont area, we will be there in partnership with the school district and Bicycle Longmont conducting the bike rodeo. This update number 3 is if any of the agencies on this call today are interested in connecting with the marketing folks at Hop Skip Drive, which for those of you who aren't aware of, it is like an Uber Lyft type service that's originally started focusing on youth, but now they kind of focus on all sort of higher need populations. They do white glove sort of door-to-door service. So whether it's older adults or folks with disabilities or youth, they go through an extensive care driver training and clearance. And so locally, we know there's a number of agencies using the service, but we don't quite have enough drivers. So we're going to work with Hop Skip Drive to do a marketing campaign. So if any of the agencies are interested and wanting to work on a marketing campaign together, let me know and I'll pull you into the meeting with Hop Skip Drive. Happy to have, the more the merrier. Already mentioned that October is Walk to School Day or month. So this link will take you straight to how to set up a campaign or or an event or how to participate as an individual, a family, a community, or a school. But I wanted to share in October, our contribution, Boulder County's contribution to Walk to School Day is we're going to set up a training on how to start a walking school bus. So if you are attached to any schools or would like to pass this information on to your school, that we will be doing this training, watch for that. I'll get a flyer out for that ASAP, but we will be hosting that probably mid to late October. And actually I'd like to invite Darcy Kitching, who is also on the call today. We are partnering with her. She is the principal investigator from CU Denver. We're doing a school transportation study. And so I would love to share the room with her for her to introduce the study.
Great, hi, thanks Cami. We can leave up Kenny's presentation or we can take that down. Yeah, that's good. Hi everybody. Yeah, so I'm Darcy Kitching and I am a doctoral candidate at CU Denver. And we are, I'm working with Cami to do a study that is going to engage both young people and their parents or caregivers all around the county in both St. Vrain Valley School District and Boulder Valley School District. And what we're going to be asking them about is how they travel on weekdays. So that trip to school, but also everything else that happens during weekday travel, because we know that trip chaining is happening. People are making lots of different trips, and that the school trip is a really significant part of the day, or multiple school trips are a very significant part of the day for many, if not most families. And we're really curious about how families are managing that part of the day, both parts of the day that involve school trips. And other things. Where else are kids going? How can we help to develop safe routes to everywhere? So we've set up a study website. I will share that with you. It's schooltravelstudy.com. I hope you can see that. It's in both English and Spanish, all the parts of it. There is an FAQ page for all the information you could possibly want. And we are going to be actively recruiting families soon. What we're doing right now is we're trying to set up sites around the county where we can actually have some in-person meetings. We might also do a couple of virtual meetings just to get more people who aren't able to show up in person, but we would really love to have in-person meetings all around the county. And so we're looking for places also, if you are associated with an organization that might want to host one of these meetings, we'd love to hear from you. And we'd really love to get your help getting the word out. These meetings are going to be limited to 10 families at each site because we need to keep our numbers small because of the technology that we'll be using and other methods that we'll be using, and just for the facility of having a small group interview. So we really need to keep that nice and manageable. So yeah, so this is the study website, schooltravelstudy.com. There's also a flyer. I don't know if you had that in your slide deck, Cami. Okay, I can send that. I will send that to Angel to distribute, and we can certainly get that to you through Cami as well. So I guess, I don't know if I can answer if there are questions or how much time we have. How much time do we have? I can show the flyer.
I know that was a lot of information.
A lot of information.
I will send out the like the PowerPoints and the flyer after the meeting. We have maybe 1 minute for questions. You can either type them in the chat or unmute yourself.
I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Well, if there aren't any specific questions, I'll just tell you a little tiny bit more about the study. So it is a 3-phase study. Right now I'm interviewing transportation professionals and people who are involved in transportation planning or programming. So many people on this call I would love to speak with to kind of understand what information you're using about how families are traveling in the area. And then we're going to go to the public, collect this new data, and then come back to the people that we interviewed initially to kind of talk about what we were able to learn from this new data and see if that's a good option for the future. So we're hoping that this will really help to provide some ongoing data collection methods for people around the county, Cammie's department specifically, to learn more and be able to learn more in an ongoing way about how both young people and their parents and caregivers are traveling around the county. And I hope that it'll be really useful to everyone in this coalition.
Great, thank you so much. So I will send out all those items. We will move on to the next update, and we will have Christina from RTD.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Christina, and I am the Community Engagement Manager here at RTD. I just wanted to talk briefly about the language access survey that we have that is active currently. This survey is available through the end of the month, September 30th, and it's available in English and Spanish. The survey is out there for us to kind of get a better understanding of what our customers are experiencing and understand what languages, what better languages we can be communicating in so that we can put the information out in a way that people could understand it, consume it better, and of course, really get the information they need. So again, the survey is available in English and Spanish. If you serve a group or would like to see the survey in a different language, you can reach our customer care department. All this information, I'll be happy to pop in the chat, and I believe Angel also has the paper or PDF version of it, which has all this information on there. So this information will then go to into our language access plan that we're developing. And that is something that our Civil Rights Division is heading up. They plan on pulling all this information from the survey so that it can inform the larger language access plan. And that way RTD could formulate a plan around what are the better ways we could be communicating, what are the primary languages we should be communicating in, and then identifying some of the key documents, the more vital documents that we should be looking at in a variety of languages. So all this will come together in the later part of the year and into early next year. And it comes at a crucial time for us as we're looking to do a lot more in terms of outreach via surveys. We're looking to launch our fair and equity study in next year. And so all of this will come together into ways that we can communicate and get the information from the communities we serve. So I'll make that just my brief update, and I'll pop the 2 links for English and Spanish into the chat. And Angel, if you're kindly able to send that out to everyone, I would appreciate that as well.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. And then also I will, once you have the social media squares, I will ask our network to reshare that on their social media sites as well. Well, thank you so much. And then next we have Natalie with RTD, who's going to just talk a little bit about the recent service changes. Natalie, are you on still?
I'm here, yes. I don't know, I thought, Christina, did we have some slides, or we just, I can pull up what I have on my computer and just go through that way.
I do have some slides, and I could share my screen if you would provide me with just one moment here.
And I can't remember if we were gonna share the first couple pages or not.
No worries. All right. I hope that you're able to see my screen.
No, not yet.
I can see it.
No, maybe I can't. Can everybody else see it? Okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
It goes.
2022 service change
I see
updates.
it.
Oh, it was hiding behind all the pictures of your faces. Sorry about that.
All right, Natalie, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, so yes, thanks for having us. So this, we're going to keep it short. It says January 22 service change updates. I think what we have mainly in here though is for what has happened for the September 21 changes, but we'll just go through this and we'll do it on the fly. So ridership through the pandemic, and I think we've shown this before as we've done several of the listening sessions and so forth. We started out with carrying 40% of ridership with about 60% of service when we switched in on April 19th in 2022 pandemic service plan, right as COVID hit. The ridership has very slowly increased this year. It's been, even though 11.8% sounds drastic, but then you have to remember that we also basically lost 60% of our ridership. So vehicle capacity limits were lifted in June with a June 13 service change, which was huge for us because that allowed us to use our operators much more efficiently instead of having, for instance, to use 2 operators to carry a load of passengers that we can now fit back onto 1 vehicle. We now have much more flexibility, and we're able for the September run board to go ahead and actually then add some services back in. So currently we're carrying about 50% of pre-pandemic ridership, and we're providing about 70% of pre-pandemic service. That is with the September 5th service changes that just went into effect. Next slide. So what influences the service change? Well, we have to obviously make sure that our employees are healthy and safe, that our current service level align with the workforce, the resources we have at hand. As everybody, as you all know, we're experiencing the same operator driver shortage as Bvsd and say Brain and other businesses around any of the, Via, et cetera, everybody. So we are, again, like I said, not having the capacity constraints has definitely helped, but it certainly hasn't solved the problem. Equity is priority for service. We have to make sure that we equitably apply service where it is seated within the district by demand. We can't just add service in areas where, demand doesn't warrant it, and then run around empty buses, where in other areas then we have standing room or passing out passengers. So we're also obviously bound by Title VI. And then,
what's that?
We have somebody, okay, thank you. Okay, obviously the financials are significant as well. We have the one-time federal resources that can support about 85% of pre-pandemic services through 2026. But yet again, if we don't have the operators to drive all that, then we can't provide it. So we need to make sure that we get our operators that we're hoping that with the change that occurred on September 6th, that we will start to see more applicants. I hope everybody will, and that we can address the demand that is out there and provide the service levels that are needed. It's great to see everybody come back and use transit and wanting to use it. And we all can't wait to be able to provide it again. Also, there's a major asset management backlog, which some of these funds obviously need to be applied to. So we have to well balance where our resources go. Next slide. Okay, the predictors of ridership trends. Well, impact of telework, obviously, as we all know, really brought ridership down, but now people are going back into office with back to school in classroom. That has definitely increased the ridership. So we've been in touch with the school districts and with agencies and businesses as best as we can, downtown partnerships, et cetera, to find out who's going back into office, how often, and what the demand really is, so that we can adjust as best as possible to what ridership demand warrants. Not all sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. Not all pre-pandemic routes will be restored because, again, we have the resource challenge, and we need to make sure that we optimize as we rebuild, that we really, like I said, provide the services where they're needed and where they make the most sense and are of best benefit. We need to keep into consideration that we have a family of services, so the different types of services. We have regional and local and express routes, airports. We have the flex ride services. We have service standards that we have to adhere to, and then obviously need to make sure that as we put service back, again, it is the integrity of the overall network that is kept intact, so that we allow for folks to be able to get to where they need to, even if that means transfers are involved, because we have, you know, different service levels or lower service levels than we had before, or certain routes are not operating, but that overall the integrity is as strong as it can be with the resources that we have at hand. Next slide. All right, so COVID recovery. Well, capacity restrictions, as I mentioned. Yes, we're monitoring ridership on a day-to-day basis. The increase of the ridership does require additional service in some parts, and our bus operations and street soups are doing as best as they can with what we call extra board operators. So providing additional trips if we have the operators at hand. For the suspended routes, we are monitoring ridership on similar routes, but also monitoring the input that we're getting from the community that we got through the listening sessions and the public input through the service change meetings. As I said, return to workplace, we're monitoring and are in touch with employers, with the business community. We had sent out surveys to figure out how, what the demand potentially will be, so that we can address it as best as possible. And then again, our workforce availability is what this comes down to, both for bus and train. The only service we can provide is that can actually be operated by our workforce. So we have to match the service to the workforce. Next slide. And for service changes specifically, for September 5th, the service changes that went into effect, these were the routes that had schedule adjustments, which for Boulder County and Northern area mainly was Route 20. We added the pattern that is called the 120W between US 36 and Broomfield, and the Wagon Road Park and Ride in the AM and PM peaks. So then there's half-hour service between basically US 36 and Broomfield and Wagon Road on the 120. The 204 was returned to full service for pre-COVID. And 206 was actually put into service instead of what we had as a special service order. So now it's operating AM and PM half hourly bidirectional between Arapahoe 55th and Fairview High School. Route 225 was returned to pre-COVID service levels. So was the Skip. The Dash, we added AM and PM short-term trips between downtown Boulder Station and Manhattan Circle. The Jump, actually, we implemented the adjustments that had been approved by the board for would have been the May 20 run board that was never implemented because of COVID. So the service levels in midday were reduced to hourly, but the service still provides connections to Lafayette and Erie in the AM and PM. Route LD, we added the midday LD3 back in on weekday, and it's still, however, we were not able to add LD1 trips or any LD2 trips as the demand just simply wasn't there yet. And then there were obviously adjustments to Access-a-Ride as we were making these changes to the routes that always triggers then the changes to Access-a-Ride depending on, you know, if a route didn't operate before, certain patterns didn't operate before, that then allows for Access-a-Ride to provide additional services to area where the routes then are operating again. Next slide. We had some reinstatement restoration of services, and all of these were, like I said, throughout the district, equally looking to where the demand was, where it was needed the most. The only one for the north area is the seasonal, which is the NB, where we always change it back in the fall so that it will service Eldora the ski resort once the resort is open. And that usually goes in effect in November and operates probably through March or April, depending on what the ski season is. And then next slide, just a couple of changes to the trains, to rail, where there were some service trips reductions on, restorations on the E and W line. And again, just schedule adjustments for the N line to help to allow for better connections. That was a September service change. Now for January, we're starting the process. We'll have our public hearings coming up here shortly. So any input that you have, again, the more input we can get as to what the demand is and where service is needed, and people going back to in office and school and so forth, that more it helps us to figure out where do we need to put our resources. And as we're hopefully getting more operators, that we can then return service as much as possible. For now, I think all we have on the table for January is basically running time adjustments. So making sure that our routes operate on time as best as possible. And again, if resources are available and we will be able to add additional service, then we will do so as best as we can. And that's it. So any questions? Let me know. I saw there was something popped up in the chat. You could look.
Yeah, I just asked everybody to put questions in the chat because we are running behind schedule, but we will have you back either next month or November, whatever works better for the January service changes for input there.
Sounds good. Happy to do it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Stacy. And Stacy, I know that you had a presentation. Are you going to be sharing yourself, or do you want me to share? I don't know if I have the most recent one.
I'm muted, but yeah, I'm going to try and do that here. Let's see if I can make it work.
So Stacy's going to talk to us today about the 119 Bikeway. So they have lots of exciting things going on to advance that project. So I'll turn it over to her.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Angel for inviting me. I am, as Angel said, going to talk about our design of the Colorado 119, which the diagonal section of that from Boulder to Longmont. We're in the process of designing a bikeway for that project, or for that corridor. My name is Stacy Proctor. I'm the project manager for the county on the project, and then I'm working closely with Alexandra and Tanya as well. They are also on the project, helping to move things forward. We're also coordinating really closely with our local agency partners, including RTD, CDOT, City of Boulder, City of Longmont, and Community Solutions, which I'll get into a little bit more later on why we're doing that. And then we also have a consultant team that's helping with the design. Mueller is our lead engineering company, and then we're working with Class A and CDR and Associates on engagement. And then there's some other sub-consultants, but those are kind of the main ones that we're working with. Before I get too much into the details about the bikeway, I wanted to share a little bit about the background of the project. It's really kind of the idea of the bikeway between Boulder and Longmont came from the Northwest Area Mobility Study that RTD led in 2014, and then is kind of developed over the years in different phases. Right now, here in 2021, we're reviewing the concept plan that CDOT completed, refining that based on additional data and information that we received through additional environmental information and additional ground survey that we have. And then, and we're working on getting input from the community and other stakeholders, and hopefully soon moving into preliminary design in the next few weeks, and then final design in 2022 and 2023. We're estimating the construction cost at this point is about 30 to 35 million. And right now the construction of the bikeway is not funded, but we're hoping that we're actively pursuing funding opportunities and hoping that by the time we're ready to construct something, we'll have some funding in place. this is kind of our overall schedule of the project. And just really want to point out that we're kind of here in this beginning phase of our public outreach and engagement. And we'll have several other opportunities for input from the community as we move forward. Sorry, I'm in the chat of a meeting that I'm not in, and a lot of people are putting things in the chat. So sorry if you keep hearing the dings on that. So as I mentioned, we're working really closely with our agency partners. There's a lot of things happening along the 119 corridor within the city of Longmont, within the city of Boulder, and then on the actual trunk between Boulder and Longmont. And so you can see here, there's just a lot of things going on, a lot of partners and a lot of people working together. In particular, CDOT and RTD are working on the safety and mobility project. And so we're working really closely to make sure that the bikeway integrates seamlessly with the highway and transit improvements that are planned along the corridor. This is kind of a high level map just showing where the bikeway is going to kind of begin and end. And really the important thing for us is that we see the bikeway as a filling in a gap between Longmont and Boulder, and that those two cities have spent a lot of time and investment and resources building out multi-use paths and bike lanes so that you can get around those communities, but there's really not a way to get in between the two in a direct way. And so that's what the bikeway, the diagonal bikeway that we're looking at, will hopefully do. One of the questions we've gotten is, there's already the shoulder on 119 and people can ride their bikes there, and certainly some people do. But we're really trying to design a facility and build a facility that's more accessible to more people. And so you can see here, this was a survey that the National Research Center did, but there have been similar surveys with similar results that basically there's a small contingent of people who feel really confident and are willing to ride on a shoulder with cars driving by them at 65+ miles an hour, but the vast majority of people are just really not going to do that. So you can see here, this isn't really the best representation of 119, but kind of the best of these options. 20% of people say they'd feel comfortable on that facility. But if you look at some of these other ones where there's a more of a separation, or biking and walking trails, a much higher percentage of people are say that they'd be willing to try that out. So we really want to make bicycle commuting something that's accessible to more people, and that more people would be interested in trying, especially as electric bicycles become more popular. A 9-mile bike ride between Boulder and Longmont isn't that big of a deal for many people with an electric bike, but if they don't have the infrastructure there, it might be pretty difficult for people to want to do that. They won't necessarily feel safe. So that's why we're focusing on building a separated facility. The design elements of the bikeway that we're looking at, one of obviously high on the list is safety. We really want to focus on having people feel safe as they're using the facility. So looking at underpasses, at busy crossings, enhanced crossings where we have at-grade crossings, looking at gentle curves, visibility, safe conflict zones. So kind of looking at all of these different elements to create a safe facility. Direct, we want something that's going to really be looking at this as more of a commuter facility that people can really get from here to there in the most direct way possible. So minimizing the length, having gentle inclines and declines, and continuity are kind of some of the main things we're looking at to make it direct. Accessible, we want to really make this something that's inviting and usable by all users within the county. We want to connect to the trails, we want to connect to transit, have clear wayfinding. So those kinds of elements that help make it user-friendly. And then comfort, we're looking at a wider path than normal. Generally, a multi-use path is usually 10 feet wide. We're looking at 12 feet for the majority of the path. And then in those higher use areas around transit stations, it'll be a little bit wider. We're still working out exactly what that looks like. Year-round maintenance, so we'll plow it in the winter. That's something that will accommodate e-bikes. Good drainage in the winter, so we can make sure that snow and ice don't stick around for longer than they need to. So that's kind of our comfort. I mentioned that we're looking at 12 feet for our for the main sections of the bikeway, which is 2 feet wider than a standard width bike path. But then we're also looking at for the high activity areas around crossings and stations that either kind of bikes one way, faster bikes one way, and going in two directions here, and then maybe a more casual zone for slower bike riders and pedestrians, and then another option of one way for bikes, 2 directions for bikes, and then a separate area for pedestrians. This is kind of similar to what you see on Broadway near CU. This is the alignment that they have. So we're still looking at these and looking for input from the community on what they think would be the best. So I mentioned that CDOT and RTD are working on a safety and mobility project. Part of that is to increase the capacity of the parking rides that are already out there and add a parking ride at State Highway 52. This is just an example. We're working really closely, as I mentioned, with CDOT and RTD on that design, but this is a conceptual picture of what it would look like here at Niwot Road. So here, the blue sections are where the buses, the platforms would be for the buses. This is the parking, and then the bikeway kind of connects through in there. So this is, again, just conceptual, but we're working with them to make sure that our designs are consistent and work together. And we're also hoping and planning and working towards a touch once approach when it comes to construction. So as CDOT is out building roadway improvements and transit improvements, that we would also build the bikeway at the same time, so that can get those efficiencies from a cost perspective, but also have lower impact on people, commuters with construction, because they say that's not so fun. Engagement, I mentioned this is kind of the very beginning of our engagement process. Our goal is to be community driven, equitable, and inclusive. We really want to reflect the diverse needs of all of the stakeholders, and really trying to seek voices that we may not always hear from in public processes and decision making. We have kind of 4 phases. We're kind of in the middle of project vision and concept plan review and refinement together, trying to share that vision and also get input on our concept plan. And then next year in March, April timeframe, we'll have a draft plan for review, and then we'll come back once we've finalized the plan to kind of let people know what we heard and how we incorporated all of that. These are some of the strategies we're working to do outreach, really working to try and do small group meetings. I know going to a public meeting is not always easy for a lot of people. So if you have, I know there's a lot of organizations here, if you have group meetings that you're looking for speakers or presenters, we'd be happy to come and give an overview of the Bikeway project and just share what we're doing and get input from your group. So definitely reach out to me if you're interested in that. And then we're also working on creating 2 community committees, a community advisory committee. We recently closed our application process for that and had about 100 people apply for a committee that has 8 slots on it. So we have a lot to review, but we're really excited to see all of the people who are interested in the diverse representation of people who are interested in participating. And then we also have an equity stakeholder group that's meeting to talk more about Latino outreach on the project and and trying to make sure that we're meeting the needs of Latino members of our community. So I think that was my update. I know that Angel sent out, we have a video that was included in the newsletter with information about all of the things that are happening on 119. There's a lot going on, and we just kind of scratched the surface. So hopefully you can see that and share that with others. This is the 119 Bikeway website. My contact information is here. We do have a survey out right now that I think we're planning on closing on the 27th of September. So we'd love to hear from folks about that. I can maybe add that in the chat as well. 27th of September, sorry, did I say October? So yeah, so it'd be great to, if you want to sign up for updates, ask questions, give us comments. And then I think there's some questions in the chat, so I can.
Yeah, I think that there's just one for the 119. Natalie wants to know if it's gonna, like, when it's gonna be opened, and if it aligns with the 119 bus rapid transit, which is supposed to open in 2025.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be having that all start at the same time, including the Bikeway, but it just is funding dependent at this point. So we're working on, depending on how much, when we get funding to build it. Right now we're hoping that we'll be ready to construct in 2023-ish timeframe, but we don't have any construction funding. And then yes, we're working very closely with RTD and CDOT to make sure that it works well with both the transit elements of the BRT and then also the roadway improvements that CDOT's working on. So
great. Well, thank you so much. And I would recommend checking out that video that was in the newsletter. I believe it's about midway down, big picture of the video link, video screenshot. Thanks for presenting. And I really think that having a couple different community advisory groups, especially focusing on equity groups, is really amazing. So thank you for all your effort on that.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions or want me to come speak to one of your groups. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And then I will also include your contact information and then the survey link in the follow-up email as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so next on our agenda, we have Carla and Jeff, who were leading the Boulder County ADA transition plan. So they're going to talk about some of the findings. And I do want to note that this ADA transition plan did not inventory our sidewalks or like our bus stops. So I'm sure there's other things it didn't inventory, but that is one thing that we know was not covered in this plan. So just in case you have questions about sidewalks and transit stops, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Carla.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I'll share my screen. All right, can everybody, oh, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome, perfect. All right, well, Angel and everyone, thank you for having us today. I am Carla Schultz, the facilities planner with Boulder County Public Works, and I'm here with our ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act expert and consultant, Jeff Ames, with Meeting the Challenge. Before Jeff jumps into the specifics of our ADA transition plan, I'll give you a super quick Boulder County ADA implementation plan history. So it has been 20 years since Boulder County developed our last ADA transition plan. And during that time, we completed ADA upgrades in 1993, again in 2000, and continuously. So since those upgrades, ADA standards have been updated. Boulder County has acquired and removed a few facilities. We've modified organizational structures, performed capital improvement projects, and we provide some different programs and services to the public that may differ from those that were covered under the original Boulder County ADA transition plan. So back in 2019, feels like ages ago, Boulder County selected Meeting the Challenge, that's Jeff, as our ADA consultant through a competitive RFP process to perform an updated ADA transition plan to help ensure our county buildings, sidewalks, some sidewalks, parking lots, policies, websites, trailheads, and open space are accessible to the public under current ADA requirements. So funding for these upgrades will be an ongoing ask every single year for the next few years until we're able to complete all the ADA action items, because there are thousands. Trailheads will take probably 4 to 6 years, while facilities will take longer, with public spaces being the top priority. So in the next few weeks, we'll be launching a public outreach website where the public can take a survey. See if I can, here we go. Where the public can take a survey, review the ADA transition plan draft, and provide comments. So this hasn't officially launched, but you're getting a sneak peek. I'll put it in the chat as well, so you can go in there and snoop around if you want to. But a virtual public meeting will be scheduled after we get public comments from the meetings and the website, and we'll be posting that date on the website soon. So be on the lookout for that. And Angel, I'll give you an update so you can update this group as well in your newsletter. So anyway, without further ado, I'll introduce you to Jeff Ames with Meeting the Challenge to give you a more intensive look at what we've done. Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Carla. Before I go off on this ADA thing, I just want to say I'm really excited to be part of this meeting today. I've been at Meeting the Challenge and involved with the Rocky Mountain ADA Center since 2002. And early on in my work here, I did a lot of work with transit, and I've been involved with Easter Seals Project Action. I've done some project work with RTD, Dr. Mack, and VIA over the years, and even Boulder County Transportation. So it's kind of exciting to just listen to everything that's going on up there in Boulder County. I'm involved in Colorado Springs. We've started a Vision Zero coalition down here, and we feel that's a kind of an important thing for people who use multimodal transportation. So anyway, without further ado, take me on to the next slide, Carla. So as Carla said, this is a revisited self-evaluation and transition plan. Self-evaluation and transition plan processes were required in the original ADA regulations by the Department of Justice. There's nothing that says anything about revisiting or updating a self-evaluation and transition plan. However, as Carla noted, a few things have changed over the years. And in order for the county to stay current with and continue to comply with the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and of course, to ensure that they're inclusive of people of all abilities in county services and programs, it was wise to revisit this process. The main things, the self-evaluation looks at the programs, policies, and procedures of the county and views them in general to see if there's any kinds of barriers that prevent or might prevent access. Transition plan specifically looks at those barriers that cannot be addressed without some kind of physical structural barrier removal. And that's what a transition plan is all about and why we're developing one. So let's move on. So basically what this is doing is looking at all of the county's activities, its programs, its services, and seeing where there might be some need of improvement for accessibility. There's also an opportunity in this process for the public to comment, to address the priorities and issues that may not have come up in our investigations. This document, when it's created, will be made available. It's a part of the transparency requirement, but of course something that Boulder County would do anyway. Next slide. Just in general terms, I always refer to the Title II regulations as the thou shalt nots. Basically, there are prohibitions of all forms of discrimination based on disability. But it also is, there are some affirmations, things that must be done, and those things are addressed. And in general terms, we look at and say that a public government must ensure that its services, programs, and activities, when viewed in their entirety, are accessible to and usable by people with disabilities. That does not necessarily mean that every physical facility needs to be accessible. Next slide, please. So one of the things we did was talk extensively. We call these management interviews, but they're really conversations, two-way conversations with the leadership of the county's government, discussing how programs are presented, where they're presented, what issues might come up affecting communication, physical access to facilities, processes for people to register requests or complaints. All of that kind of thing is part of what we talk about. And I have to say, most of the people we talk to in the county's management are quite familiar with the parts of the ADA that are directly applicable to the services they provide. In some cases, our discussions led into issues that they were not quite so familiar with, and we had an opportunity to provide some information that I think will be useful. Next slide, please. So we talked to a lot of people, and then we also put out a survey to county employees and got more than half of them to respond, which in this day and age is pretty amazing, I must say. Much better response than we typically get with state and local government entities. The thing that probably stood out in the survey was the fact that a lot of county employees don't really know a whole lot about the ADA, and they're kind of unsure about how to respond to certain situations. That said, they're very positive and very willing to help and serve people with disabilities. However, sometimes the way that they might do these things is not the most appropriate way. And so we feel that there's some additional training to go on. It was interesting. This is a quote from one of those surveys in the comment section, and it said, "Although we want to be inclusive and welcoming organization, I am unsure about most things related to ADA. It would be good to get training and resources so that I'm better informed and prepared to assist coworkers and the public, as well as make changes to our projects, programs, and facilities where possible." So there's a real positive attitude, but also an acknowledgement that more needs to be done. Next slide, please. So we went over some of the ideas. We offer a lot of training actually online through the Rocky Mountain ADA Center, but we will also provide additional training as needed, and we'll target this to the specific areas that we feel that the staff could use these trainings. We deal with everything from what we call disability etiquette and talking about things like implicit bias, to the actual technical standards for the ADA, to accessible websites. So as an example, what we're doing right now, conducting a meeting virtually, if it's accessible to people with disabilities, possibly means that people don't actually have to get out and get a ride to get to a meeting, or can't get to a meeting because it's at a time that's not convenient for them. So there are a lot of ways to make programs accessible, and the internet is a great way to do that, provided that websites are accessible, which is something that isn't always the case. Next slide, please. There's 4 basic requirements in a transition plan. The first is just to list those things that need to be fixed, and then how to fix them, when to fix them, and who's going to be responsible for getting it done. Pretty straightforward. At least when you look at it as 4 bullet points. It's a very complicated process, determining priorities, determining which things can be circumvented with means and methods other than physical barrier removal is kind of the first stage. Thinking about the time frame, money comes into play. It's going to cost a lot of money to fix the physical issues in the county, and that is going to take time. And as Carla said, the pace of the transition plan will be dependent on available resources. Next slide, please. So in the process of this project, we looked at 32 different county buildings or facilities, 32 trailheads, and 14 facilities at the fairgrounds. And basically we looked at the as-is conditions, and then we identified those things that are going to require structural changes to achieve program access. Next slide, please. So in county buildings and facilities, we identified, there were actually originally like 5,200 different technical findings. We eliminated some of those because they're not barriers to the public, but there remain nearly 3,300 barriers to members of the public. If you look through the different areas where we find these, restrooms are significant. After that, walkways, hallways, stairways, a lot of those walkways are exterior sidewalks that lead to buildings from the public right-of-way, from public transit stops, from accessible parking spaces. And obviously parking, if that's where you want to get to a public building and you need access and there's no accessible parking, or the accessible parking is not compliant, that can be a serious problem. Going on through this list, you see, courtrooms, obviously, that's a process that's important. All of these different areas will be addressed at different levels of priority, looking at different facilities where the public is most present. Next slide, please. And at trailheads, once again, restrooms, which are kind of a critical feature of trailhead areas, the parking at these trailheads, signage, which tells people what level of accessibility the trails provide, is also an issue that we think is important. I should just briefly say that there are no ADA standards for trailheads. However, the federal government in the Architectural Barriers Act accessibility standards has developed what they call the Outdoor Developed Areas standards, and those do address trailheads and trails and picnic facilities and outdoor areas and so on and so forth. And where we don't have specific technical criteria in the ADA standards, we look at the Architectural Barriers Act for best practices. Let's move on to the next slide. The fairgrounds, which probably without a doubt is the most accessed by the public of all of the county's facilities. Once again, we found a number of issues there because there's camping facilities and all kinds of recreational facilities there, picnic areas, so on and so forth, and a number of different buildings, access between buildings, access from parking lots to buildings, access from the street into the fairgrounds, a number of different issues there. But considering the fact that people come to events and maybe spend all day or even camp and stay there, restrooms and showers are a fairly important facility item at the fairgrounds. Next slide. So the final transition plan will involve this, feedback from the public. We will look at that and it will be incorporated, will be noted in the transition plan. The final transition plan will go to the county commissioners for approval. As Carla said, there is access to the plan draft. We're still tying up a few loose ends with it, but the final will be on the website in the next few days. And I believe a Spanish translation of that as well. Please have a look at it. Anybody and everybody is welcome to, give their comments on it. So I think that pretty much covers everything here. Next slide.
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay. Yeah, I think we don't have a question slide, but if you have questions, you can address those to Andrew Barth or Carla or me. And if there's any questions right now, but I think time is short, so we don't necessarily have to do that right now.
There is one, well, first of all, Eugenia Brady from ACL, she said that it's true that the fairgrounds have accessibility barriers. So that's confirmation. And then also Jordan in the chat has a couple of, like a comment and a question. So it looks like her comment is she would encourage the document to be made accessible with proper heading tags and all images described. And then her question is, did you consider Braille signage in this section when you looked into county facilities?
Definitely. A lot of the restroom issues have to do with signage that's not compliant as a case in point. But yes, that is definitely one of the things that we look at in every facility.
Great. Thank you. And I see that Carla put the link in the chat. And Jeff, I saw your hand went up, but we do need to get on to the next presentation. So I will include the link to the transition plan and then the survey link that you shared in the follow-up email. I'm not sure if I have a link, like that pre-link to the survey, Carla. So if you could put that in the chat also, that would be helpful.
Okay, I can do that.
And then, yeah, Jordan says that she wants Braille for the trails. That'd be awesome. So
I'm not sure where we put it for it to be discovered, but it's certainly something that could be done.
Yeah, wonderful. So, and we will also include in our next newsletter the information on the public meeting. So if you have more questions, that would definitely be a great forum to ask those questions. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And
thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you. So last on our agenda today, we have Julie with RTD's Reimagine process. So I will turn it over to you, and I believe Bill Soroy is also on the call.
Yep, Bill, I'll go ahead and pull up my screen if you want to kick us off here.
Sure. Well, thanks everybody for allowing Julie and I to come in and give you a little, have a little discussion about Reimagine. We wanted to get some feedback today a little bit on kind of where we're going with some of our strategies related to the guiding principles that our board adopted earlier this year. So we look forward to your input, and I'll turn it over to Julie.
Great. Thank you so much. As Bill said, we really appreciate the opportunity. I have just a couple of quick slides, but we're really looking for input. So wanted to, give you just a real high level update on where we are with Reimagine, the mobility plan for the future. And again, most of our time, we would just love to ask for some feedback from you guys. So just to set a little context, Reimagine RTD started back in 2019, and there's always been two major components of the project. One is a systems optimization plan that we have started, which is, it's really looking at that short term, where should RTD be providing services? What services should RTD be providing? So we started this process and we got into a lot of information and we gathered a lot of baseline data. And then, as you know, COVID hit. And so part of our challenge with this is we've had to recalibrate our focus with the SOP a little bit. And now it's really focusing, the SOP process is really focusing on working closely with our service planning group to help use the analysis we conducted as part of the SOP to help inform the next 2 or 3 run boards. So today, we're going to focus a little bit more on the longer term mobility plan for the future, but if you are interested, please put your name in the chat or reach out to Bill and I, because we have a rebuilding service working group we have established that is a combination of Reimagine and service planning and stakeholders like yourselves who really want to roll up their sleeves and get into a little bit more detail on how the service is growing back from our current levels in COVID. So if you're interested in really doing a deep dive on that, let us know. Our next meeting is, I believe, October 18th or 19th for that. What we're here to talk a little bit more about today is the mobility plan for the future. So this is the longer term component of Reimagine RTD. So looking out, as far as 2050, really trying to address those long-term mobility needs for the region. So the mobility plan for the future, it's really looking at scenarios. One thing we recognize is if we try to sit today and guess what the future is going to entail, well, we're going to be wrong, of course, because it's the future, right? Nobody anticipated a pandemic. So what we're trying to do is we're running a series of scenarios. So we are not saying we think the future will result in X. What we're saying is the future, here's a range of future scenarios. And then we start working specifically to identify strategies and tactics that will provide support for RTD across a whole range of future scenarios. And that's what we're here to ask you for some feedback on today. So the mobility plan for the future is asking questions like, let's look at our future mobility trends and needs. How is RTD structured today? Is RTD equipped? And does RTD have the procedures and policies and the foundation established to really address these futures? And then we're going to have to get into an interesting discussion about prioritization. So what happens in the future if there isn't enough funding to do everything? What does that look like? So really starting to put a lot of that in together right now. So what is guiding us as we're looking toward the future? 2050 is a long way away. So when we take a look, what we worked on, and a lot of this was really garnered from the public outreach that we've done over the last year and a half, to develop a series of guiding principles. So this is sort of our framework. These are the principles that will act as a foundation to really drive future decisions for RTD service delivery. So these are the guiding principles that were established back in April of this year by the board of directors. And I'll go through them very quickly because this is really what the meat of what we want to talk about today. So mobility, mobility, providing safe and reliable transportation, that's something we've heard dramatically from everyone. If it's not reliable, if I can't rely on it, then it's not providing me the mobility I need. Equity, it's about removing barriers. We talked a lot about in the last presentation what those barriers are like. Well, there's barriers in transportation as well. How do we identify those? How do we address those? And how do we increase the freedom of travel for more individuals in the system? Financial, got to be a good, steward of taxpayer dollars. Partnerships, who can we work through to help us really make sure that we've got the pieces in place to really address future mobility needs? Workforce, how do you foster a dynamic workforce where people feel valued, and they really want to lean in and innovate? And then finally, sustainability, really looking at sustainable mobility options and continuously seeking opportunities to reduce RTD's environmental impact. So mobility, equity, financial, partnerships, workforce, and sustainability. That's really what we're here to talk about today. So the quick exercise we'd like to spend the next 5 or 6 minutes on, or however long you guys have with us, is to really take a step back and say, okay, we have these guiding principles that have been developed with feedback from the public and from stakeholder groups and our board of directors. What are some things that we at RTD should be thinking about now to make sure that in the future we can actually achieve these guiding principles? So I'll throw out an example. So what about all stops and stations needing to meet ADA requirements? We recognize that as a goal. We recognize that is not in existence right now. And so that would be an example potentially of equity, removing barriers to accessing transportation. Another example could be sustainability. Maybe we look at electrifying the fleet, looking at zero emission buses, those types of things. But we're not here to tell you what the strategies are. We're here to hear from you. We would love your thoughts, and especially given the focus of this group. Obviously, we appreciate feedback in any of these categories, but we recognize equity is a big mission focus for this group as a whole. And so didn't know if you guys have any thoughts about what RTD could be doing to remove barriers to accessing transportation services, really providing everyone with that freedom to get where you need to go. So with that, I will stop talking. I have a couple other slides just to wrap us up, but I was hoping we could spend the next maybe 5-10 minutes and just hear from you guys. What do you think, what could RTD be doing differently? What should RTD be thinking about? What sort of strategies and tactics would you like to see RTD applying? Any thoughts? And feel free to throw things in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself and kind of tell us what's on your mind, whatever's easiest for you.
One thing that we heard, I'll just kind of get started, because usually it takes one person to say something before everybody else.
Thank you.
But one thing that we heard through our coordinated human services transportation planning process was more predictability around when Access-a-Ride is arriving and departing. So one thing that especially our accessible transportation focus group that we had, they said that they wish that there was more accessible like Lyfts and Ubers, because they're really missing out on that spontaneity of travel. And as it is now, just by like the federal guidelines, like when you, like the window of opportunity, like when Access-a-Ride can arrive, it just ends up becoming like a whole day adventure to like go to the doctor's appointment, or people have to arrive to work like 2 hours early just to make sure that they're there on time. So I don't know if you've heard much about like that predictability and regularity of a paratransit service.
That is absolutely something we've heard feedback about. We've heard stories about, then I have to halfway through the day, I have to reschedule, and how complicated that can be, and, sort of recognizing the impacts on individuals' lives with that. So I really appreciate that. That's great feedback.
Yeah, and then in particular, I think that the Access-a-Cab option is no longer available in Boulder County because Metro won the contract. And so it used to be Z-Trip that had the contract, and so people can't get the more spontaneous Access-a-Cab trips in Boulder County.
Got it.
I just experienced that about a week ago. They said, nope, we can't come to you. I said, oh man.
Because they didn't have an appropriate vehicle that could help you, or what was it? Why did they say no?
The Access-a-Cab, because I live in Boulder. So I was planning on using that to go to the doctor. because it's like, you know, $16 each way,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot if you just need to go, you know, 5 minutes down the road. But yeah, I couldn't get a taxi. I mean, I can use Lyft and Uber, but like I said, it's a lot more expensive for the amount that I would use it on a more regular basis.
Got it.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you for that feedback. Absolutely. What else? I'm sure you guys have lots of ideas for RTD.
One thing to consider is the concept of the workforce and key destinations for younger workers. So for teens and families, and accessing the schools a little bit better so they can get to and from school to their employment after school. And then also then the parents themselves can get on to work if their kids can get to school. So when you're looking at key destinations, how those schools play into those and service them better, especially since here they're two of the largest employers in the county, but usually or typically it's only the high schools that are served. So there's many kids who need to go on to other key destinations, but they don't seem to be as factored in as strongly as some other employment sites.
Great feedback. Thank you. Well, and that's something we're looking at as part of this too, is the travel demand is changing. You guys have been talking about that. So we're not seeing the two hump camel, you know, the peak periods in the morning and the evening as much. We're seeing a little bit more travel throughout the day. So it's a great feedback.
I saw that Sandy raised her hand in the video. Can you unmute yourself, Sandy? Or
yes, it's even the hours of transportation being available for those on workforce. The bus doesn't arrive early enough to get them to where they need to be in employment, and they may have a night job or starts late in the afternoon, and by the time they're ready to get off work in the evening, there's no bus service in Longmont. So that's a concern.
Got it. So it's the span of service, just making sure that you have buses early enough and late enough.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I think Jeff was next, maybe. Mm-hmm. Hi, Jeff.
Hi. Thank you for presenting today. I would like to humbly suggest that perhaps customer service could be improved. Mm-hmm. For example, at Broomfield Station 36, it was 4 below zero, and I was outside with about 5 other people waiting in the cold bus, or waiting in the cold when we could have been waiting inside the bus instead. It would have helped. So I think thinking about customer service and sort of those types of circumstances and how to improve those would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. I'm sorry, I've taken some notes here. I don't want to miss anything. Okay. Great.
Looks like Aaron has his hand up.
So one thing I'd like to kind of bring up is people accessing Access-a-Ride or not able to access it, especially people with disabilities going to employment. Kind of like Sandy explained, either they arrive really, really early for the job or really, really late for the job, maybe on time for the beginning of the shift, but, 1 or 2 hours, maybe 3 hours late for the end of the day. Or really early for the beginning of the shift, a wide variety of time spans for the employment to and from, and actually during the job shift, it really goes to the point of how valued that person is to actually bring them on time to a job and then on time to home. Because most people, when they're finished working, that's their desire, to go home. Or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I holds that position of employment. And that really reflects well on whether they want to access that service of Access-a-Ride or the bus or not. Because that's really lacking between both ends. where they're late or where they're early, going to a job, especially to a job, because it's really like I invest my time, my energy, and they expect me to be there. They expect me to leave at a certain time. But Access-a-Ride or the RTD routes just don't allow me to, fully participate in that aspect of my job.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate it, Erin. So it's kind of similar to the span of service discussion we had a little earlier too. It's making sure that the Access-a-Ride can provide the service we need for people to get to their jobs on time, get home on time, those types of things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. Other thoughts? I was going to look at chat real quick. See if we have any.
One comment that came up during our coordinated plan was Spanish language support. So not just like the translation, but the lack of bilingual drivers and just not feeling like you can ask questions necessarily. And then also even like the call center doesn't always have somebody who's like really like proficient bilingually, I guess. And this is secondhand, this is what they told us. So just really, I know you all are having a hard time recruiting drivers, period, but perhaps like really focusing on bilingual drivers could be helpful as well.
To improve that that quality of that experience. Absolutely. Yeah. Terrific. Thank you.
And another thing that came up during the coordinated plan was simplified fare structure. Like people just find it so hard to figure out like what discount they get when, and it like, I don't know, there ends up being over a dozen different fare discounts, like passes that people can use. And then also just the high cost of the trips.
Excellent. Bill, do you want to mention that real quick? Because RTD is initiating a full-blown fare study to address that issue. I didn't know if Bill, you wanted to mention anything about that.
Yeah, just a plug. We have initiated a process for a fare study. We're going to be hiring a consultant to help us out here this fall, and then really start in earnest next year. So you can probably see us again, specifically on that fare study, probably some point early next year.
Great. And I see that Darcy has. Darcy, do you want to unmute yourself? And do you have a couple questions in there, or like a meeting up?
Oh, sure. Well, the real question I have is just really service for families. My question was, has RTD ever had or considered a family concierge to ensure riding transit will be comfortable, kid-friendly, and welcoming to families? I've heard from many parents that they're concerned that transit doesn't feel safe or inviting for kids. And I know in some other countries, they've really made a strong effort to make riding public buses just really kind of fun and inviting for kids. And I know that that's not the key constituency, of course, for RTD, but it could really move the needle on, like Cami said, having parents who work for the school districts bringing their kids on the bus to work if those routes functioned reliably and frequently, and if there was just more of a sense that kids and families are welcome on RTD.
That is great feedback. I have not heard of a family concierge program, but we will share that as part of our strategies and tactics. I think that's a great idea. There have been a lot of questions about partnering with Denver Public Schools and making sure that that's seamless. So this is a great addition to that feedback. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, I just had like 2 more slides. Do you want me to do? Okay, I want to be respectful of your time. But I'll just really quick thank you. First of all, this was great. It's exactly the kind of feedback we're getting. So what we're doing is I'm consolidating all of these strategies. I've got a spreadsheet with hundreds and hundreds of these that are actually going to our technical folks and our board, and everybody will get to see these. And then this is what we'll be working to it as we develop the mobility plan for the future. So thank you so much for your time. Just very quickly, wanted to just mention a couple of next steps. For this, the mobility plan for the future, we're very, very excited. We're using a new modeling tool. It's called EMAT. And what it is it's a great tool for evaluating, like I talked about, when you're not quite sure what the feature is going to entail and you have multiple scenarios. This is going to be a great tool that's going to give us actually technical results across a lot of different scenarios that then we can use to help organize our strategies and things. So love the opportunity to come back out and talk to you about that. We'll have that in the roughly the October timeframe. And in terms of public engagement, this is our focus right now. We're meeting with TMOs and TMAs and community advocacy groups. We're gathering these strategies, but you're going to see a big push from us in the wintertime. That's when we're going to have a new survey. It's going to have a lot of recommendations for the mobility plan for the future and for the systems optimization plan. So we would love your engagement on that. We're going to have a whole series of public meetings and telephone town halls, and do some customer outreach and also some youth listening sessions in the fall. So that's going to be really the big sort of a culmination of a lot of our efforts on Reimagine you'll be seeing over the next couple of months. And then as always, if you're interested, we always have standing meetings coming up. We have actually a presentation to the board of directors on the 21st. Then we have our 2 working groups in October. And then, as I mentioned, the rebuilding service group, working group, if you really want to roll up your sleeves and get into the details of building service back, that meeting's on the October 19th. So feel free to reach out to me, or if reach out to Angel or whoever on your team, they'll get back in touch with us. But we'd be happy to engage with you guys at any time on this. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. So I know we had a really tight agenda and I accidentally skipped over Zoe. She has one quick update that I forgot to let her do earlier.
Doris, thanks, Angel. All right, very super duper quick, everyone. I'm putting in the chat. Via is going to host our virtual Monday Morning Cup event on Monday, October 4th, 10 a.m. The link to register is in the chat. This is going to be an introduction to a new car share service in Louisville. And this is something that we're doing in partnership. It's Boulder County Mobility for All, Colorado Car Share, and this project is funded by Next 50 Initiative. We're very excited to do this new collaborative service and help provide more transit options in our community. Please do register. We're going to get in depth and fun detail. You're going to learn all about how to engage with us, how to do additional travel training with us, and it's going to be a great time. I really hope to see you there. It's especially great for people and agencies who serve people who are 50 and older, who live in Louisville, although the service is also open to anyone who wants to use car share. So I'll put my email in the chat as well. If you have questions about anything, you can definitely email me. And yeah, please do sign up, and I'll see you on October 4th. So thanks, Angel. I appreciate your partnership in this. It's going to be a really great time.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Zoe. I'm excited about the project. So I just want to thank you all for attending today. I know it was a super packed agenda. Thanks for accommodating. We had a few like schedule changes, so that's why it was so packed. But we have some really interesting presentations next month as well. One off the top of my head is Boulder's microtransit, micromobility pilot that they're doing. So looking forward to hearing about that. And we also have the Vision Zero Community Network presentation that Amy from Boulder County is going to be giving. So look forward to seeing you all next week, or next month rather, and thank you for your time.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Angel.
Thank you, Angel. Bye, guys.
Thank you.